Good morning, everyone. My name's Helen McIntosh, and I'm the president of the South East London Chamber of Commerce. We are delighted to be working today with the Sussex Innovation Centre, who are based in Croydon, one of our boroughs. And we're going to learn about what is content marketing and where do I start. And the expert to lead us through this journey is Joseph Bradfield. And I'm going to pass over to Joseph, and I will just say again, if we have any questions on this presentation, we'll ask them at the end, please, when you put your little yellow hands up. So Joseph, over to you.
Thanks, Helen. Morning, everybody. I'm just going to share my presentation screen, just a sec. I'm just going to double check. Can you see this as a full screen presentation, or can you see my presenter view before I begin?
Wait a minute, I can see your next slide to the side, to my right side.
Let's try that again.
Full screen.
And then...
Oh, brilliant. Full screen. Well done.
All good. Okay,
everyone puts themselves on mute.
I'm going to bring my paper notes out then in that case, rather than risk going into presenter view again. Okay, welcome everybody. Today's session is all about content marketing. My name's Joseph Bradfield, and I'm a marketing communications advisor with Sussex Innovation. We're a business incubator working with innovative startups. We're owned by the University of Sussex, down just outside of Brighton, and we have a site that I'm speaking to you from today in Croydon, in what's known as the 50p building, that tower that's over East Croydon Station. And my role here as part of the support team as a marketing communications advisor is basically helping small businesses and entrepreneurs to explain what they do and tell their story more effectively. And obviously content marketing plays a big part of that. So that's what we're going to work through today. So this is the kind of basic structure of what I'm going to talk through. I think there are 5 big questions that anyone who's considering working on their content marketing needs to be asking themselves. The biggest one of all, why are you publishing content? A lot of people will embark on a marketing activity without much of a marketing plan behind that activity, and that's where a lot of the kind of content that you see out there in the world that you think, who is this for, comes from, is when people publish content without a good idea of why. And underneath that big question why, there are several kind of sub-questions, which I'm going to go into in more detail. So who are your audience? What do you have to say? Where and when are you going to say it? And then the real kind of practical question at the end, how are you going to manage it? How are you going to make all of this happen? So let's start with that big question, why? I don't know if anyone here has seen the Simon Sinek TED Talk about Start With Why. It's one of the most viewed on YouTube of all the TED Talks that are out there. I'm going to give it a very brief summary here, but Simon Sinek's argument is that lots of businesses are very good at explaining what they do, but the kind of nuts and bolts of why of what they exist to do, and some of them will go into a bit more detail and explain some of the details that underlie that, how they do what they do. But very few businesses, and they tend to be the most successful ones at communicating and building an audience, are the ones who explain why they do what they do, what the purpose is behind it, and what gets them out of bed in the morning, what makes them tick, essentially. So let's start with that same question when it comes to content marketing. Why are you doing it? There are several really good reasons to be doing content marketing. There's lead generation and sales, there's brand awareness, there's building trust and authority with your audience. Maybe you're campaigning for something that you want to change in the world. Maybe you're trying to build a community around yourself. And maybe it's just because you've got something important that you feel you need to share, something to say. I've kind of listed those in order of, I see it as the least effective to the most effective forms of content marketing. People are pretty smart and they will see through you pretty quickly if all you're trying to do is make sales with your content. They are much more likely to warm to you, to trust you, and to buy from you if there is something underlying that motivation to sell. So you have something important to say, you're trying to connect with them, you're trying to start a conversation, you're trying to lead a campaign. Those are all really good, solid bases for starting a content marketing campaign. Content is in all the kind of tools you have in your marketing toolkit. Content marketing is good for things that show authenticity. It's good for having a dialogue. It's good for building trust, demonstrating your expertise. In essence, it's all about humanizing your business. And it's not really designed for generating quick sales. Sales are the kind of end point of a content strategy, in my eyes. So with that in mind, I love this mission statement that the BBC has used for well over a century now, that it exists to inform, educate, and entertain. And that, I think, should be the basis of any good content strategy. Are we telling people something important? Are we showing them how to do something? Or are we keeping them entertained and keeping them interested? Ideally, your best pieces of content will do all three of those things. But it needs to be doing at least one. Otherwise, what reason do people have to tune in? I went to a talk recently by the journalist Ross Atkins, who you might recognise as the guy who does those little BBC News 5-minute introduction videos, where he explains something that's happening in the world and goes into all the background and the kind of history that's led us to this point. He's really good at summarising quite complicated, quite in-depth topics into something digestible, and he gets loads of people watching his clips, many more watching his clips on social media than will actually watch the kind of more in-depth BBC News broadcast version of the same story. And he had some really good advice about how to make your content say what you want it to say. He said to stop focusing on what you want to tell people and focus on what they want to know. And his advice was that because we live in a world where there is almost infinite information, you know, it's accessible at our fingertips. We can watch anything we want or read anything we want on the internet at all times. No one has to consume your content, and it's always worth bearing that in mind. They can stop watching or reading at any point once they've started. And so everything you say needs to have a purpose. A good way of summing it up is no one cares about your email as much as you do. So make sure that you are doing something at every point that shares information, that educates your audience, or that entertains them. So how do you go about doing that? I would start with thinking about what you and your team are good at, what you can say that will add value to your audience. Where do your strengths lie? Are you a naturally funny person? Are you good at being helpful? Are you good at providing insight or digging into a topic and giving people more details? What are the things that help to humanize your business, and what things are surprising about it? Those are some of the kind of prompts that you can use to start thinking about what topics am I going to focus on and what am I going to be known for? And then once you've got a kind of broader idea of the topics that you're going to lean into, this is a bit more of a detailed structure of how I like to think about a content marketing strategy. So this is called the AIDA model, and it's used throughout content marketing by brands all over the world. Almost everyone is doing some form of this model in their content marketing, even if they don't realize it. And the basic conceit behind it is that you want to funnel your potential customers from the moment that they become aware of you through to the moment when they take action and buy. And that's not an immediate process. It's very, very rare that someone hears about you and immediately gives you their money. So you have to nurture that audience through this kind of process where you gradually gain their trust and their interest and then convince them to take action. So we start at the top of the funnel with awareness. You want content here that is insightful, that's interesting, that grabs people's attention. Then we move on to the next stage of interest, where you offer something that's of much more significant value and begin to capture them as an audience that is in regular contact with you. So some examples of how you might do that. At your awareness stage, you might share a little snippet, an article or a piece of PR or a social media post that someone will go, that's interesting. I'll click through to their website and find out more. Then on your website, you might have a much more in-depth piece of content. We call this evergreen content. So something like an ebook or a series of webinar videos or anything that gives much more information away and gives much more value away to your audience. But crucially, that valuable piece of content doesn't come for free. It comes in exchange for someone leaving their email address or joining your community, following your LinkedIn company page or whatever it might be, wherever you decide that you want to capture your audience and build that community. You ask for their permission to join by giving them something that's of much greater value. And then once you've got them as part of your network, that's where you can start to build desire for your products and services. So this is where you might use an email marketing campaign, for example, to regularly stay in contact with them, to showcase your product, to explain how other customers have used it, and gradually build trust with your audience. And then finally, you have the moment where you get them to take action. So at the end of each of these campaigns, you want a really clear call to action that says, here's where you can sign up. Here's where you can get a free trial. Here's where you can get 20% off because you're a loyal follower of my emails. Whatever it might be, you do something that makes it compelling, that makes them want to act now. And there's actually a school of thought that there are two further A's that follow action, aftercare and advocacy. So this is about thinking about how you can continue to communicate with your customers after they've bought from you so that they don't just disappear once that happens. And can you make them into such loyal customers that they will begin to advocate for you and do the job of selling you to their friends, their network, and how can you make that easy for them? Can you give them offers and templates and things that make it easy for them to pass on your information to others? So the crucial thing to remember here is, yes, there are times where people see something and impulse buy it, but most people don't work that way. Most people like to check something out and they like to keep in contact with it for a while before they make that buying decision. So you're just pushing them along that funnel gradually to a point where they can take the kind of more manageable next step in the process. So let's break down those steps in a little more detail. In our awareness and interest phase, how do we start coming up with ideas of what we want to say, and what's going to be useful to talk about? I've got a few tools on the slide here that I use when I'm stuck for ideas and trying to think of something to write about, or to make a video about, or to talk about on a podcast. The middle one here is a website called Answer the Public, which is an absolute godsend for content writers. Basically, what Answer the Public does is it collates all of the questions that people have been typing into search engines. And if you type in a keyword or a key phrase, it'll return around 40 or 50 questions that relate to that key phrase. So you can see in the example I've put here, well-being is the phrase that I've typed in, and it's come up with a load of how, will, who, what, where, when questions that relate to that word. And these really can start you thinking about topics that you could write about, but also, crucially, they are questions that people are actually asking in the real world. So not only are you definitely writing something that does that job of being informing and useful and entertaining, you're also building your SEO by answering those questions directly, because the next time someone types in a question phrased like that, hopefully your article will pop up as something that exactly answers it. Another way that you can look for what questions your audience are asking is by going to forums. So things like Reddit and Quora are really good sources of ideas, what people are talking about. And I've put this Google for Dummies image here partly so that I could talk about looking for what people are searching for, but also to remind me to talk about that idea of, can you create a really useful guide? Is there something about your business that people don't know that you can educate them about, that will make a really great piece of evergreen content, something really meaty that you can tackle, that can just sit on your website forevermore and be that kind of magnet for leads? One thing to bear in mind with that content is think about which answers you want to give away for free and which are more valuable. And your more valuable answers are the ones that you use at that second stage of the process. The ones that you can give away for free should be the cornerstone of your awareness raising content campaigns. So then, moving on to the later stage of the funnel, desire and action. We are complicated creatures, humans. We are often in a bit of a conflict between our emotional response to things and our logical, rational response to things. And a lot of the time, we react to things first from an emotional standpoint and then from a logical standpoint. We don't like to think of ourselves as behaving that way, perhaps, but it's a fact of life that things that hit us in the gut first tend to resonate more with us than things that just appeal to us in our minds and our brains first. So throughout your desire and action content, when you're trying to convince people to buy from you, think about what's going to build trust, what's going to humanize your business, what's going to show your customers what your values are and who you are as people. Can you use case studies? Do you have really good testimonials from your customers? Can you show the behind the scenes workings of your business and the people that they're buying from? And try and understand what those emotional drivers are for your customers. What's the way that you can show them how other people who've bought from you have felt that same emotional benefit? And what's the tipping point that convinced them to buy? What made that argument so strongly that they couldn't resist? So I'm going to dig into a few of those other sub-questions I mentioned up top. The first one is, who's listening? So a colleague of mine has a phrase that she likes to use a lot when talking about sales and marketing, which is that if you're trying to talk to everybody, you might not reach anybody. And what she means by that is that a lot of businesses make the mistake of making their marketing too broad, too watered down, too vanilla. And as a result, no one really sees themselves in that marketing, in that advertising. So what the customer wants to see is themselves reflected in the product and reflected in the service. So you should always start any content campaign by properly defining who your customers are, and really getting granular about that, the details of that. So I've got an example here, which I've nicked from another one of my colleagues who used to work for the charity World Vision. And as part of the work he did for them there, they built this really detailed customer portrait of who their ideal donor would be. And they called her Jennifer. You can see Jennifer in the bottom left of the screen there. Jennifer is a middle-aged woman. She likes to read Good Housekeeping magazine. She's a member of the National Trust. She loves flower arranging. She likes going on long hikes in the countryside. She really cares about her family. Her family is the most important thing to her. She likes slightly bougie skincare products like Molton Brown. She likes a night out with the girls. So Jennifer is effectively my mum. Most of us know a Jennifer. And you know, the thing to understand here is that I'm sure most of you, as I'm describing Jennifer, recognize someone who fits that profile. And what we're doing here is, by understanding who our ideal customer is, we start to understand all these other details about their life, and that starts to inspire the types of events, the types of content, the types of imagery that are most likely to appeal to them. We start to learn where we can place that content, where they're likely to find it. So for Jennifer, for example, we know that she reads Good Housekeeping magazine. Let's try and get an article placed in that magazine. Maybe we sense that she might not use many social media platforms, but maybe she uses Pinterest for her mood boards, for her flower arranging. Maybe she is an avid user of the Mumsnet forum. Those are the types of places that we would start looking for our ideal audience, if Jennifer is our ideal audience, and start finding out what they're talking about and start writing and creating content that's tailored to them. On the right side of the screen, I've got another completely different customer avatar. And this is Lloyd. Lloyd spends his time on LinkedIn. He likes to read long-form articles on Medium. He's a subscriber to Wired magazine, which he reads on his tablet rather than in the physical version. And just by me telling you those three things, I bet you can imagine who Lloyd is and can picture a Lloyd that you know in your life. And you can probably start to think of the types of content that are likely to appeal to him. Now, those are two entirely distinct audiences. And the point I'm making here is, if you decide that Jennifer is your key audience, there's no point in looking for her on LinkedIn. If you decide Lloyd is your key audience, it's probably not worth placing an article in Good Housekeeping. So start from that perspective of who is my key customer, who are my core demographic, and where do they hang out? And then on to the practical questions. How are we going to make all this happen? There's no point, I always say, in doing lots of things half-assed. I'm sure most of you on the call today are small businesses, maybe even sole traders, and you simply don't have the time to be on every social media network, to be making a podcast, to be shooting video, to be writing an article or a blog every couple of days, to be publishing content constantly. So if you're in that situation, if you are limited in your time and resource and money, then do one thing, do it really, really well. So yeah, don't fall into this trap that I see lots of businesses fall into, where they think they need to be everywhere. They think they need to set up a million different social accounts and then never post on them, or they write one blog, send out one email, and then stop there. The key with any good content marketing strategy is consistency, and it's doing one thing consistently, repeatedly, over and over again, until people start to see that there is a pattern there, and start to come just to read or to watch or to listen to what you have to say. So start with the question, how much time can you spare each week? It might be, I can do half an hour every day. It might be, I can do a morning once a week. It might be, I can actually do my Monday afternoon, my Wednesday afternoon, my Friday afternoon. I can entirely dedicate to this. It's different for every person and for every business. For some businesses, it's much more important than others. And for some entrepreneurs and some team members, it's much more satisfying to do than it is for others. So do the thing that you're enthusiastic about doing and do it well. What can you give proper attention to with the time that you have available? And then go back to those questions I was asking earlier and start with what's going to be most valuable and most achievable, and work backwards from there. So if you only have time to do one thing, perhaps you do that big piece of pillar content that'll then sit on your website and serve you well for years to come. And you don't have to keep thinking of the new thing to add to it every time. Take account of how long everything involved is going to take. So it's not just the process of thinking up and creating your content. There's also editing it and making it look good. There's publishing it and publishing it through all the channels that you want to publish it on. And then there's the long tail, if you're using something like social media or email marketing, of interacting after that initial publication. So don't think, just because I've written something and put it up on LinkedIn, that's my job done. There's also going back and answering any questions that arise from that post, or there's interacting with people's comments when they respond to it. So yeah, take some time to really kind of break down what time you have available and what it's going to be best spent doing. One good way of thinking about how to break down that time is this model of create, curate, and repurpose. So the best pieces of long form or in-depth content are the kind that can be put to many different uses. So shooting a video takes a lot of time, costs a lot of money, will take resources to produce. You might think, well, that's not worthwhile for my business, but maybe it would be if from that 5-minute video, you can produce 30 10-second long social media clips and a blog post that transcribes some of the content from that video, and that it can be reformatted into an audio format and turned into a podcast. And suddenly you've got a whole month's worth of content that you've produced just from that one piece of work. So try and think about spending, I would recommend that you spend about 10% of your time working in content marketing on creating totally original new content, and about 30% of your time on repurposing that content and finding different ways that you can use it and get it out through different channels and through different mediums. And then the other chunk, more than half of this this pie chart, is curated content. And that's the best kind of tool, because you can put your feet up and and not have to do that much work yourself at all. So curated content, by that I mean look for what's out there in the world that speaks to your audience. So going back to our example of Jennifer, what sort of things is Jennifer interested in seeing? Maybe you could create a mood board on Pinterest of other brands and other visuals that fit alongside yours, that make you a useful place for Jennifer to come and visit. Other types of curated content might be, hey, what do I read? What articles do I find really interesting? Who do I follow on LinkedIn? Who do I read in the newspaper that I think that's something that I want to share with my audience? And what can I add to that conversation? So don't just republish a straightforward article with no context. Say, why did I find this interesting? Why did I think it would be useful for you? Here's what I want to pick out from this story that I think will particularly resonate or be particularly relevant to my customers. And try and start a conversation around it. So the best way of doing that is by asking questions. What do you think about this? What's your view? What more can you share? What information do you have that I don't have? That's the best way of using social media as a way to build that trust and authenticity and humanizing your business. And then the very last bit of content marketing, the bit that some people love to do and some people hate to do, is measuring your success. So I've just got a few points here about how you measure success. Going back to that AIDA model that I showed you earlier on, think about at each stage of that process, what are you trying to get your audience to do? So with your awareness content, maybe you're just trying to get them to click through to look at something more detailed on your website. Maybe you're just looking for them to follow you and become part of your audience that will keep coming back. And then over time, you're convincing them to move further down the funnel. So think about all the ways that each stage of that process you can measure what has worked and what hasn't worked, and set those metrics in advance and stick to them. Because that can be a really tough thing to do. And we often see people falling into this trap of worrying about what we call vanity metrics. So vanity metrics is anything that looks good. It's the kind of thing that you can celebrate with other members of your team. But actually, when you dig into it, it's not really giving you much useful information about what's working and what's not working. So a good example of a vanity metric is the number of people who have liked this post on Facebook. There's basically nothing you can do with that information. You don't know who they are. You don't know whether they are people who will continue to follow you. They're not giving you any information about whether they're proceeding down your content marketing funnel. All you're doing is watching the numbers go up. What we're looking for are actionable metrics that can be used to help us inform our business decisions. So what is changing between different types of content you post? A good example of an actionable metric is when we post video content, how much engagement and how many clicks do we get on that, as opposed to when we post something that's a static image? And how does that compare to when we post something that's text? And when we phrase our posts as a question, what kind of responses do we get? Do we get positive or negative sentiment when we post? So look for those kind of pieces of information that don't just tell you a number, but tell you what you can do with that number, that provide a point of comparison that can help inform what you do going forwards. Here's just a few examples. And again, this is something that is different for absolutely every business. But here's a few examples of some key metrics that you might want to look into alongside your content marketing. So how many updates are you publishing, and how does that frequency impact the results? Do you get the same number of people clicking through on something or reacting to something if you are posting monthly, if you're posting weekly, if you're posting daily? And what's the sweet spot for you? Sometimes you might find that the numbers increase with frequency. Sometimes you actually get to the point where you're oversaturating and you're posting too much, and people will start to lose interest. And that's a metric that's really hard to measure unless you keep doing things consistently over time. So, you know, take a month of posting consistently, measure that result, and then decide, am I going to do more or less next month? Test again, compare the two, and then see which one you're going to choose going forward. What kind of reach do you get, and how many impressions? So how many people are seeing what you put out there? And you might want to compare the stuff that you're doing organically through your social media feeds or through PR versus your paid content like advertising or pay-per-click marketing through Google. And what do those two numbers look like? And actually, is it worth spending a bit more on doing more organic activity because people are seeing it just as much as paid? Or is it worth paying for your content to get in front of people because that's going to drive the numbers up? When people see your content, what is the engagement like? And crucially, the thing to look at here is your engagement rate rather than the pure numbers. So rather than the number of comments that you're getting in total on each post, is that number climbing or falling over time? And that usually is an indicator of we're building an audience and people are getting more interested in what we have to say. People are coming back for more if that engagement rate keeps climbing rather than fluctuating. And if it is fluctuating, why is it fluctuating? Go back to that question of what types of content are having the biggest impact. Then we've got our website traffic numbers. So where is the traffic to our website coming from? What channels is it coming from? What types of content is driving it? And if you set up your Google Analytics really effectively on your website, you can see whether that traffic is eventually converting into sales or not. And that's something that may take a lot of time between that first visit to the website and someone eventually becoming a customer. But if you can measure back to where did they originally come from, then you can start to put more of your time and energy and resources behind the channels that are proving most effective. And then we've got a few other things which are link clicks, CPC, which means cost per click, and CTR, which is I can't actually remember what CTR stands for. I think it's customer transaction ratio. I might be wrong. So don't quote me on that. I'm not a paid for marketing consultant. I'm a pure content marketer. But those are ways that we might measure the return on investment of how much we're spending on paid advertising and whether it's delivering a return for us. So once you've gathered all that lovely data, what do you do with it? So this, I think, is the really key thing. And it goes back to what I was saying before. You want actionable information that you can do something with. So take your data, record it, analyze it, look at it in a cumulative level as a big mass of data, look at it on piece of content by piece of content, and then what insights can you derive from that? What does analyzing that data teach you about your activity and what your audience is doing in response to that activity? And then, based on what you've learned, what do you do next? What do you do differently? What's going to improve things? And that's my whistle-stop tour of content marketing, which is obviously a huge topic. I could go on for hours, but I'd love to hear any questions that you have.
Thank you very much, Joseph. That's super. If you could take your screen down.
Okay.
And let's see. Excellent. Have I got any questions, please? Yellow hand. Maybe you've instructed her. I thought that was really excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It really was. And I thought your slides were brilliant because they were nice, clear, concise.
I do try. I mean, that's I could go on for days about clarity and conciseness being key facets of content marketing as well.
Absolutely. And you know, I'm a great believer in the phrase "little is more."
Absolutely.
That's so true. And everyone, you know, puts so much, you know, copy, and you just, well, you know, you just don't look. Your brain turns off. Now, come on, there must be some questions. I can see Warren King, who's our photographer, and you're in Spain at the moment, Warren. You going to ask a question? No. Oh well, I think.
Yeah,
yes,
I'm in Spain.
Warren.
Yeah, hi. No, I thought it was very thorough, so I can't think of anything straight off my head to ask. But there's some interesting stuff there. It's got me thinking about what I need to do.
That is absolutely brilliant, Joseph. That really is. If you've convinced, you know, you've done it in one go, so no questions from Warren. That's wonderful.
Well, if we don't have any further questions, might I return back to my slides quickly to just talk about my ulterior motive for presenting today?
Here we go.
Off you go. Question. I don't know how to raise my hand on this thing. I don't know because I don't.
Okay, Stephen, just speak. Sorry.
Yeah,
because we can't see you. That's why.
Yeah. Sorry about that. It's just a quick one. Are we going to be sent this recording? Because I've got a colleague who might be really interested in it.
Yes, you will.
Fantastic. Cool. Thank you for that. And obviously, yeah, that was a really good. Yeah, really good. Thank you very much for doing that.
Thanks, Stephen.
No problem at all. So if let me just get my slides back up. So if today's session has sparked any food for thought and you're thinking about what you can do next when it comes to your content marketing, just wanted to let you know about a program that we're working on for Sussex Innovation at the moment called the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. So we are responsible for delivering the South London part of this programme, which is a nationwide government programme to provide funding for small businesses. And effectively, we can do lots of different things in support of your business. You can work with me on developing your content strategy, on coming up with a plan, on coming up with some key messages, perhaps, that you want to get across to your audience. Or you can work with any number of my colleagues on things like your financial modelling. You could do a competitor analysis and work with our market research team, one of whom I think is on the call today, to understand more about where your business sits in the competitive landscape. And also you can access our partners at the University of Sussex. So you can get hold of some fine academic minds who can support you with much more difficult and thorny questions. Perhaps you're looking at how you can optimize your business processes using AI, and you can work with the Sussex AI research group on that question. Perhaps you're looking at your sustainability and how you can bring more sustainable working practices into your work. And there's the Sussex Sustainability Research Programme, who are well placed to answer some of those questions. So every project we do as part of the UK Shared Prosperity Fund involves some element of knowledge transfer with the university. If you are interested, to be eligible, you just need to be a business that's registered or based in South London, to have a legal kind of trading entity and be facing some kind of business challenge that needs solving. But just come and have a chat to us, and we can help decide if there's a project that we can do for you. I've left a QR code up on screen there, which will take you through to a way that you can register your interest, and we'll be in touch with you.
Joseph, that's wonderful. Can I just ask a question? What is South London defined as? Because we as a chamber, you're one of our chamber members, but we cover 5 boroughs: Royal Greenwich, Lewisham, Bromley, Bexley and Croydon.
You've asked a good question, which I don't know the answer to off the top of my head. I believe it covers everything except the central London, just south of the river region.
Right.
So it's defined by postcodes. It definitely includes all of the 5 southern boroughs. And I believe they are looking for either the business owner or the business to have a postcode within those boroughs.
Right, because the South London Partnership, those sorts of people, they cover Croydon, They're going out that way.
I can ask. I think my colleague Maria, who I mentioned earlier, is on the call, and she may have those those addresses in detail in front of her.
Yes, for sure. Nice to meet you, everyone. And Maria, it will be a pleasure to work with you. Thank you very much as well to the Chamber for this opportunity. Yes, pretty much is everything below the river. So Lambeth, Wandsworth, Richmond, Kingston, Sutton, Merton, Croydon, Bromley, Greenwich. And that's pretty much, I think I named all of those ones. So if your business is registered or operating in those areas, you are perfect for this opportunity.
I should also mention that we are, there's a few things that we are particularly keen to do with this programme. We're particularly keen to work with underrepresented founders and business owners. So management teams with women as part of the management team, Black and minority ethnic individuals, and founders with disabilities. We're really keen to see you represented and to benefit from this funding. And we're also really keen to work with businesses that have some kind of social impact. So if you work in healthcare, education, in sustainability, in anything that does good in the world, just on a personal level, I think we're all really keen to work with those kinds of businesses. So please do get in touch if that sounds like you.
That's very good. And can I also ask if you can send something to Charlie, and we'll make sure that we get all of this in our weekly easy masthead, which goes out at 11 o'clock on Friday.
Of course.
So if we can get the definition, we'll send it out to everyone. That would be wonderful.
All right, thanks so much, Ellen.
Maybe we can book you again later in the year for session 2.
I'd be very happy to, yeah.
Thank you very much, Joseph. So I just really want to say thank you so much, and we've all learned a lot. Okay, so I'm going to say bye-bye.
Oh,
thank you.
Can you stay on?
Thanks a lot.
thank you. Yeah, happy to stay on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
But
Thanks.
we've got cheers.